Hello, and welcome to Rocket Fuel, your daily update of everything that's happening in the Rocket Pool community. My name is Wack. Today is August 14th, and today's episode is going to cover price action. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin's all-time high from yesterday. On the Rocket Pool side, we are going to be talking about Devnet 4 being released, BTCS mentioning Rocket Pool in their quarterly reports. That's really exciting. On the Ethereum side, we're going to be talking about Ethereum for AI. We're going to be talking about the Ethereum Foundation hitting back in the way that it didn't used to before. And we're also going to be talking about some things with Bitcoin and a whole lot more as well. So let's get started.
10, 9, ignition sequence start, 6.
Okay, so the only place to start today is with Bitcoin because Bitcoin hit a new all-time high price yesterday, and it is now on Binance at $124,474. So it went on a really good run last night, and yesterday evening, and it hit new all-time highs. So congratulations to Bitcoin holders out there. That's a nice move for you all. I don't think this is like the peak of the cycle for Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin's going to go much higher than it is right now. Where it's going to go, I'm not sure. I don't know, but yeah, I think this is good to show that Bitcoin's moving, the market's moving, it's moving positively. At the same time, yesterday, ETH was just flying really high. It reached $4,786 on Binance. So again, this is a really spectacular pump over the last couple of days. ETH was just go, and one thing that's actually really interesting is that on this move, the ETH BTC pair actually held up really well and is actually hitting new local highs or new cycle highs even. Well, not cycle, since the low in April. We're now at nearly 0.04 ETH BTC, which is really exciting. But I can't talk about price action without talking about what's happened this morning. And as you can see, there's big candles down for BTC. And there's candles down for ETH as well, but ETH has bounced back much more strongly. And these are the candles for ETH BTC. It's actually held up much better than BTC on this downtrend. So this morning there was a PPI release, and it was showing that inflation is going up, and that is not what the market wants to see, because they want to see rate cuts in September, and interest going up inflation going up means that those rate cuts might be a bit less likely. According to FedWatch, last night it was 100% chance that the rates were going to be cut in September, and that's gone down a little bit, like down to 95% I think now, whereas on Polygon it's at around 80% now that the rate cuts will happen. But that's the price action. ETH is doing really, really well. And the fact that it's still going up against BTC, even with BTC going down, is actually a really strong sign that the ETH is going to do well for this next period, for the remainder of the bull market. And I wouldn't at all be surprised if, I expect, that's my base thesis, is that ETH will outperform BTC from now until the end of the bull market. Massively so even. So yeah, that's what I'm excited about. Okay, let's get to Rocket Pool news. And the Rocket Pool news, the place to start here is with this announcement from Langus. And Langus says, "Hey everyone, the protocol DAO Guardian has been..." Oh, sorry, that's the wrong one. Here he says, "Hey everyone, we're excited to announce the launch of Saturn Devnet 4. It says at present, Devnet 4 is running in the Houston code. We plan to keep Devnet 4 on Houston for around 1 week before executing the upgrade to Saturn." It says this is the perfect opportunity to explore the new functionality, allowing testers and node operators to get comfortable with both process and Saturn itself. And then to participate, there's a link to the GitHub where you can download the builds of that version of Devnet 4. And it says if you contribute to testing Devnet 3, this is a brand new environment. So you'll have to exit your validators and reinitialize a new wallet for that. So yeah, this is great. And Langus, has a little announcement here saying that the more the community gets involved, the stronger and better the product will become. So definitely go and help out with that. They actually put out a couple of tweets about this too. So the first tweet here is saying Saturn continues to make good progress. The fourth and final smart node DevNet release has just been launched. So this is getting ready to explore the new rocket pool functionality, such as 4 ETH validators and megapools, by installing the latest development build from GitHub at the link below. DevNet 4 was initially launched with the existing QSUN contracts and will be upgraded to Saturn next week to simulate the mainnet upgrade. So that is that's really nice bit of information, and there's a link to the GitHub there as well if you want to go and check that out. But yeah, Saturn's getting closer. The date looks like October 29th, and so far there hasn't been anything to change that date. I think audits are going well. Kane was in the Discord yesterday talking about how the auditors are, having lots of meetings with Kane, talking about asking Kane to explain what different things are supposed to be doing, how it's all supposed to be working, and then working on that with Kane. So that's what's happening right now, and there's 3 different audits happening simultaneously. So I guess Kane's kind of working with all of those guys simultaneously. And also, if you have any questions about the whole process or where we stand with how everything's going, there is a community call that's taking place in just over 14 hours when I'm recording. That will be at 1 a.m. UTC on the 15th. So if you're on Eastern time, that will be at, I think, 9 p.m. or 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'm always mixing up those summertime to hour differences, but I think it's at maybe 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. Actually, let me just go back to the Discord. It might say it there. If you give me a second. One event. This is 9 o'clock Eastern time. So there's a 4-hour difference with UTC and Eastern time right now. So if you want to ask anything basically about Saturn and the whole process, then that will be your time to do it on the community call later today. Okay, next we have BTC. As you all know, BTC are an Ethereum ETH treasury company. It's run by Charles Allen, who I had on Launchpad earlier this week. That was really exciting. And they have their quarterly earnings for quarter 2, and the data was released here to the SEC's website. So you can go and have a look and dig through the whole report if you are so pleased. But here people were talking about it in the Rocket Pool community. And they're saying that, what were they saying? They'll say, here, there's Pateris started to pull out screenshots and talking about the different data and showing they've been spending so much money on blockchain infrastructure costs and paying their salaries to their employees and things in marketing and their gains and what debts they do or don't have, and finding that they have around $10 million in debt. And they also it looks like they hold some RPL, which was found in this report. So they have 609 RPL, as you can see here as well. They had some other tokens as well. These are from holdovers from their old staking services that they're doing before they transitioned exclusively to being an Ethereum treasury company. But that's pretty cool. Jasper had this tweet. I was saying, did you know that BTCS runs on Rocket Pool mini pools and owns RPLs? Based on their recent interview with WAC, it sounds like rETH is coming up next. So he says, shout out to Aave as well for the appearance on the official SEC filing footnotes. So it looks like they are, using Rocket Pool, and it looks like they're also using Aave. And it sounds like they want to broaden their DeFi footprint and their interactions in the Ethereum space. So that's really exciting. Charles here had a tweet about this as well, a summary of the kind of where they stand with the report. And he says Q2 was one of the most pivotal quarters in BTCS history, achieving record quarterly revenue of 2.77 million, up nearly 400% from last year and 64% from Q1. So that's really nice for them. We're going to be talking about them a little bit later during the ETH strategy section. But Okay, we had this nice little tweet from the Rocket Pool intern yesterday. So as the prices were hitting, doing really, really well with ETH, going up nearly $3,800. Rocket Pool, because so much of the protocol's TVL is staked ETH, obviously, the value of that was going up a lot too, so much so that it now hit an all-time high TVL of $3.2 billion, which is really, really cool to see. And that, I think, puts us at number 14 in terms of protocols built on Ethereum. Some of the protocols ahead of Rocket Pool don't rely on the price of ETH in a similar way to the way that Rocket Pool does. So if ETH keeps climbing, then you can expect Rocket Pool to keep climbing in the TVL rankings as well. I think that would actually be really, really cool to see. So yeah. Okay, next we have this new strategy from Euler, and this is from Euler, sorry. Euler, this is going leverage long on rETH wrapped ETH. So you can actually use this. It's a looping tool that you can use. So the way it works is you deposit your rETH. In return, you can borrow ETH. And then you use that ETH to buy more rETH, which you then deposit and borrow again. And you can do this multiple times in order to boost your collateral. Now, boost your rewards. Now, there are a few problems with this, and potentially, for those of you who have like a high risk appetite, a few potentially high benefits as well. So one of the problems with this is that the supply APY is very similar to the actual staking rewards. So you're not going to be getting much reward from the actual looping. Like staking rewards are around 2.5%, give or take, and the supply APY is 2.5% for the ETH. So that just shows you that the looping doesn't actually help you too much. Like you'll just be looping and paying for gas, but not actually getting much of the benefit of it. So this is actually a uni chain, so the gas costs aren't too high, but you won't be getting too much of a benefit of it. However, there are other benefits. Actually, before I talk about the benefits, there's risk here. So the risk here is that the max LTV, the loan to value that you can get, is 97%. That means you can loop this 33 times, which is a huge amount of looping. However, please be very careful about doing this, because what can happen is that you can if you go 33 max multiplier, if there's a depeg of 3% on rETH, then that will get you liquidated. So please be aware that this is really, really risky proposition, and that you could potentially lose everything if that happens. So be aware that the rewards are hard to juice, and that there's possibility of liquidation with this. Jasper here kind of talks about it. He says huge new opportunities available for our ETH holders. Euler Finance isolated rETH pool with a max LTV of 97%, get up to 33 times leverage with only 2.5% borrow APY. Leverage is risky, but rewards can be great. So, with those issues that I just mentioned, right? Like you have to loop it a lot of times in order to get the rewards, and the fact that you can get liquidated. My alarm bells were ringing. I was like, well, is this a good strategy to do? Like, why is Jasper recommending this? So Jasper and I actually had a little bit of a conversation about it back and forth, and I said that the rETH rewards are kind of less than the income that you'll make, and he says no, it'll actually be a tiny bit higher potentially. So looping it can get you rewards. However, the argument Jasper makes is that you aren't doing the strategy for looping the staking rewards. You're doing it to play the peg. Now, what does that mean? So let me explain to you. So here we have actually, sorry, I just clicked on the wrong thing. Here we have, it tells you how much of a discount there is for rETH on the secondary market. So here there is a 0.6% discount right now. So that, compared to the protocol price versus the amount that you get for it selling it on the secondary market. Now, what Jasper is saying is that each time you're looping it, you're buying the rETH at this discount. And when rETH goes back to peg, 1-to-1, at that point, you'll have made however many times you looped your rETH, you will make, 0.6% on each one of those loops. So the potential rewards there could be really, really big. for that reason. Now, that is the game to play here. The game to play is not to try to boost your staking rewards, because you're not going to get much of a boost for that. But the game to play here is that you can boost this discount if you have the idea that this discount will close. Now, the two different things one main thing really that can close the discount, that's node operators exiting. Some node operators are already exiting their validators because they want to arb this discount themselves on the way. For each validator that you exit, you can get around $750 right now. However, that closes quickly. So unless you've already exited and are waiting to take that arb opportunity, the chances of it existing in 12 to 20 days time when you get access to your ETH, if you exit today, the chances of there being a discount are much smaller. So that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, that's the way to play this game. So please understand that this is still risky. Please understand that there is and please understand the game that you're playing, and understand that if the discount gets bigger, then you lose money basically, because when you'll have to buy it back at the discount to pay back your loan. That's the situation there. However, with Saturn 1, every validator will have to exit to re-enter into as mega pools if they want to do that, and that will lead to a surplus in the deposit pool. So this discount isn't long for the world. Saturn 1 is 10 weeks away, so there's a chance that you can make some plays on this, and I think it was because you're exiting 8 ETH validators and you're getting rewards on 24 ETH worth of this ARB. It actually works out to be around 6 months worth of staking rewards per validator. So yeah, the numbers sound pretty good there if that's what you want to do. Okay, we've got an update from Star Protocol here, Star program, and this is the one where people from the Rocket Pool community go out to other communities and other protocols and ask them to use rETH. Here Signal XU has an update saying that Yo has started allocating their ETH to rETH, and there's Balancer LP integration, which will be completed in the coming weeks, along with the co-marketing, which is really cool. And then the Reserve Money has integrated rETH as well. They've created initial liquidity on SushiSwap, and it says they said that the BSD ETH plugin has been developed, and we're currently discussing the audit. So I think that's a basket of LSTs, and rETH will be overweighted in that compared to market share, which of course is really, really cool to see. So thank you, Signal XU, for that update. Okay, we got this really cool tweet from the Rocket Pool account that I really liked, and I really wanted to highlight this. So there's this idea that's going around, actually stems from a quote on CNBC, saying that Ethereum is the invisible backbone to finance, the potentially like global finance, which is really, really cool to hear, because that's what we want it to be. We want it to be the backbone of global finance. So the Rocket Pool account here actually did a really cool thing where they said Ethereum only has value as Wall Street's invisible backbone, while it remains credibly neutral and free from censorship. It says this is achieved by permissionless node operators running diverse setups, not on Amazon Web Services. Now, this of course is Rocket Pool's amazing like crown jewel, is the node operator set that Rocket Pool has. It's a legion of home operators with some institutional operators like BTCS, of course, and some people who do use hosted services, and that there's nothing that Rocket Pool says that they're not allowed to do that. It's permissionless. They can absolutely do that, but we know empirically that a big chunk of Ethereum solo stakers, Ethereum home stakers, I should say, use Rocket Pool for their staking. So this is really great. I replied to this tweet, said that Rocket Pool is massively punching above its weight in pushing these attributes of Ethereum. Jasper says thousands of home stakers power Rocket Pool and thus Ethereum. Rocket Pool in Ethereum's defense. So it's really cool. There were some other nice comments there as well. So you can check those out. But I really liked that that mindset that the Rocket Pool account is kind of pushing forward here. That's really cool. Okay, Phiz, Super Phiz had this tweet yesterday that got some discussion going. He tweeted out, he said, "Hey, Rocket Pool, it's 2025, get a web interface." So just talking about like, the node operators we have right now, everyone who's a node, well, not everyone, almost all the node operators of Rocket Pool use the smart node stack, and that is a Linux software system that uses command line interface to to interact with Ethereum staking, and your wallets, everything is all through command line interface. There is a TUI, which is a terminal user interface, but that is only for certain parameter changes and like settings. But the bulk of the activity for the program, to the software, is command line interface, and that is a technical barrier for people who might want to become home stakers, but they don't have the belief in themselves that they could do home staking that way through command line interface. They really want some kind of like a web app or some kind of HTML interface that they can visit and they can use, and then they use that to manage their node instead. This is something that Rocket Pool has been talking about for a number of years. Joe was working on Smart Node V2, which would allow webhooks for you to build GUI on top of that. When Joe left to work for NodeSet, that idea was continued a little bit with Patches and Fornax and Thomas working on smart node stuff, but it hasn't really gone anywhere. So the Rocket Pool community actually got into a little bit of a discussion about this yesterday, which was really cool. So Phiz here, Patches says Phiz choosing violence today on Twitter, and the idea was that he was talking about getting the web interface, and then there was a discussion basically about whether or not this is useful or not. Patches says the user interface thing comes up all the time. It doesn't bother me at all. He says we're working towards it, but we have more pressing issues. And then others got into the discussion. Hululo here said we actually have an overabundance of node operators right now because we are restricted by our ETH minting, and it says it's not like we can accommodate more node operators for now anyway. Like if you want to become a node operator with Rocket Pool, you obviously have to go through the Ethereum queue, but then on the Rocket Pool side there's a Rocket Pool queue as well, because those new validators only come online after getting matched with new ETH deposited into the protocol, and that is in fits and starts, happens here and there, but it's not reliable enough that new node operators can choose it. But of course with Saturn 1, that will be they'll be able to kind of get into the queue as the churn happens, so they'll have to time it right. But anyway, there was Hulu said there used to be a bounty for making a graphical user interface, but that was pulled. And it looks like some of the work wasn't compensating things properly. Steely says a bad user interface is worse than no user interface, and if you want a user interface, we have it now called DAppNode or perhaps Avado, but people are saying that those aren't too good, and they don't work very well. And then there was some saltiness from Pateris. He says himself, I'm a bit salty because his grant request for a node interface and a lot more as well actually was denied, and then it was supposed to be like a alternate to the smart node stack, and then there was a lot of discussion about why it didn't happen. So it looks like the main reason why it didn't happen is because the bounty was set as not paying enough for the work, supposedly, and then also that currently the team can't prioritize the work on that, and because of that, they it's not something they can put forward, but the systems are in place for that to happen later. So I'm hoping that we will get that eventually. I like this comment here from Stephen because it's very similar to my own understanding. He says, when I first started the journey of Rocket Pool node operating, this was a huge hurdle. I had the same request. He says, that being said, the Rocket Pool documents for how to set up and operate the node are unbelievably thorough and easy to follow, top notch and helpful. So this is actually pretty much my experience exactly. when I heard that staking could only happen through command line interfaces, I would have actually been a solo staker at Genesis. I was really like kind of exploring the idea. But I got scared really of using the command line interface. It's something that I hadn't ever done before. And, the documentation wasn't, as robust. I think there was like, summary stats guides, which people did really like, but being a complete novice with command line stuff, I was sure that I would make some kind of mistake and get slashed. Obviously, that's not how slashing works, but that was my fear. And what's happened since then is obviously I delved into the Rocket Pool docs, and they are absolutely amazing. So if you do want to, if you are scared, then if I can do it, then you can do it. The docs are really good. It gives you like a step-by-step guide pretty much once you have a Linux machine that's working. So if you want to actually start a new Linux machine, you might have to watch a different video or read a different guide. There are a couple of good ones before you install the Rocket Pool app, which is where that guide starts from. But everything is literally laid out step by step, and it explains to you what's happening, what's going on, tells you what commands to copy and paste, and like it's all really, really clear. So that's fantastic stuff. But yeah, so Steven said, that they were top notch and helpful. Super Phiz replied, he says, I agree and I love the command line interface, but I do think there are hundreds or thousands of people who would be more likely to use the software if it had a web user interface. I'm honestly surprised they're even debating it. So I disagree with Phiz a little bit here. I don't think, sadly, there are thousands of people out there who would be willing to stake, whether with Rocket Pool or solo stakers, provided they had a web user interface. I think the people who wanted to stake, who really didn't want to stake, have already figured out how to do it, and the people who didn't want to stake, they might say that that's a barrier that they couldn't overcome. But I think the thing is that they just didn't want to stake. So there's that as well. Of course, in the future, I think staking with Ethereum is going to get even easier, and hopefully Rocket Pool will be on the forefront of that as well. So yeah, good stuff. Okay, there was a bad day for Rocket Pool. So well, I let me clarify. So just as we started the episode, we were talking about price action being really good for ETH and Bitcoin yesterday. Sadly, ETH has been going, but leaving Rocket Pool behind and leaving RPL behind. And that means that RPL is hitting low numbers on the ratio against ETH again. ETH has gone up so much in price, and RPL was trying to keep up, but just struggled to keep up with that price movement. And overnight, the price went down to 0.001768, and that was back at all-time low since the high territory. So Ramana started updating that. The thing is as well that we actually hit Smougel's prophecy, which was set years ago, of saying RPL ETH would go below 0.0017 or be at that. So the community kind of had a discussion internally for the last few weeks, or the last while actually. At which point does the prophecy come true? Is it a 0.0017x, like it could be 9, or if it goes below 0.0017? So actually what happened is the ratio, as as RPL couldn't kind of keep up with that ETH strength overnight, it kind of went further and further down, and then excuse me, and then as the sell-off happened this morning, that's when RPL got hit really hard, and it actually went down below Smougel's number. So here we got a low 0.00168, 3978. So against ETH, RPL is down as bad as it's been basically since the staking launched on Rocket Pool. And yeah, that's not fun for anyone. It's really bad. But Smoigel, who made this prophecy years ago, saying that this ratio was going to hit at some point, said we did it. So he said, I bought RPL, and I hope everyone else is doing the same thing, and it's up only now. So a whole bunch of people in the community were talking about how they've been buying RPL at these prices and how they think that this will be the low for ETH BTC. Of course, sorry, I'm sorry, the low for RPL ETH, the low for RPL against the dollar came in April. and that was at around $3.14 like pi number. Since we hit Smougel's number, we have gone up a little bit in ratio. We are now currently at 0.001707, so that's still really really low, but there's a slight turnaround, and I'm just hoping that RPL gets some momentum from somewhere soon. Okay, and then that's with the Smeagol's number. Okay, so let's move on to some Ethereum news now. And it was a little bit of a light day on the Ethereum news, so the actual news itself. So one of the things that I thought was really cool was this post that came out from the Ethereum Twitter account talking about how autonomous agents, AI agents, are going to become the biggest Ethereum power users, which I totally agree with. And I think that this is actually like a huge thing that people massively like don't understand just how big this is going to be. I think personally within a year, we'll have more agents transacting on Ethereum and its L2s than we have humans. And I think it's going to happen so quickly. Like we already have hundreds of agents and bots operating on Ethereum and doing like a big chunk of transactions. I think like that number is going to get dwarfed like in about a year. And then every year after that, it's just going to get more and more and more the case that you will have agents doing it instead of humans, and that number is just going to be up only forever pretty much after that, because the number of humans is actually growing. Well, it's probably going to peak, or peaks, it has peaked soon, but that peak of humans coming on chain, that number will go up, but there's a finite number of, if every human is on chain, that'll be 8 billion people, but you could literally spin up 8 billion agents in a weekend pretty much if you wanted, if you had the compute power to do that. So the Ethereum account actually really highlights this in a really cool way. There's a guest thread about a long forgotten HTTP code, which is 402 payment required, and how this could unlock a new frontier for Ethereum agentic commerce. So here, they're talking about different kinds of tooling and how autonomous agents can do a bunch of different things on our behalf, and they're already here. And then they're saying that HTTP 402 was a way of giving a payment, but it was never widely used. And what's happened here is that now with this with these agents, they could actually use that. And what you have is with protocol 402 and then EIP 3009, it'll give the ability for the APIs to become into wallet aware services. So you need no API keys, no billing dashboards, no humans in the loop. All you get is the agent just gets a 402 request. They sign the transaction, formats the request with a micropayment, and gets a response. One round trip, like a vending machine, no accounts required. So this is actually really, really cool stuff. And they've got a whole lot of different uses that you could get for this. So you could get LLMs paying for model inferences. So one agent could go and ask another agent or an LLM to perform a task for it, like producing some text, creating an image, making a video, and then it could pay the other one using this standard. You can also get things like agents paying for context for task optimizations, apps streaming stablecoins for permanent storage, and browsers paying to read gated content, which is actually really cool because you could have an article, someone charges 1 cent for you to read the article. You pay, it's a cent, and then that money can get streamed that way. And then you also have things like self-driving taxi that owns itself and pays for its maintenance in its own account. It's really cool. Like everything is going to be using this, I think, in a matter of years. We're living in the future. We really are. And then why Ethereum? It says because agents need trustless settlement, and that is guaranteed with Ethereum. Of course, they can't wait for days for invoices or dispute chargebacks. They need atomic payments, programmable policies, and composable wallets. Ethereum and stablecoin gives them exactly that. So this is actually really, really cool. Like it's a whole new way of thinking about transacting online. The idea is eventually that you will just like your internet and your knowledge dashboard will just be an interface, and that will be managed on the back end by a whole army of different AI agents, all doing things to help you do whatever you want. I can't imagine that, but that's looks like that's the world we're heading towards really, really quickly. And then discover, pay autonomously, made possible by EIP 3009 on Ethereum and Base as well. And of course that will be then applicable to all EVM chains. So here, Virtuals, who is a protocol that is creating AI agents, they are saying that the Ethereum is for AI. So this is actually a really, really cool idea, something that I think is awesome, and I think I'm really excited that it's being built on Ethereum. Okay, Xiaowei had a post here, and this is in response to a look on chain post. So look on chain is like a wallet tracking service that sees, has a look at what people are doing on chain. Obviously, like as the name says, and what they try to do is see who's moving what, where it's moving to, how it's all going, and then try to like show people that, hey, like they might be able to get alpha from this. So one of the things that Xiaowei did, one of the things that happened here, Look on Chain said the Ethereum Foundation is selling ETH, and Xiaowei actually, the co-executive director of the Ethereum Foundation, said this was not the Ethereum Foundation's operation. Fun fact, back in 2014 ICO, 9% of the ETH supply was allocated to the Ethereum Foundation. Now the Ethereum Foundation holds under 0.3% of the total supply. So you can probably find tons of addresses linked to the EF after 10 years of Ethereum being used. So you might have an address that's like 1 hop away from the Ethereum Foundation or 2 hops away from the Ethereum Foundation, and people will say, oh, this is the Ethereum Foundation address, and then spread FUD that Ethereum Foundation is selling. And people love this idea that, jump on the Ethereum Foundation selling kind of bandwagon. But I think the Ethereum Foundation selling days are over, because there's a ready audience to buy Ethereum Foundation ETH, and that is the ETH treasury companies. So whenever the Ethereum Foundation wants to sell ETH, it most likely will be that, they'll just put a message out to the treasury company saying, hey, does anyone want to buy 5,000 ETH? And they'll be like, yes, please, we'll buy it. And then they'll just buy it. It just makes it so much easier for everyone because the ETH doesn't come on the market. I think that'll be probably the way the Ethereum Foundation sells its ETH going forwards. But, as we saw with them selling 10,000 ETH to SBET a few weeks ago. So this is really cool. I'm really glad that the Ethereum Foundation now stepping up and kind of fighting this FUD and just being like, you're actually wrong, and this is why you're wrong. So great job by Xiaowei there. Okay, so with that spike that we had this morning in the fall in prices because of the PPI numbers, we actually had Blob usage on L2s hit an all-time high, and they hit, they reached the full capacity, and the Blob fees that have been stuck at one way for quite a while now went actually up to two-way. So the Blob fee hit thanks to that candle, and the Blob usage numbers went up significantly. You can actually have a look at Hildobby's dashboard that we haven't talked about Rocket Fuel for a while, but you can see that it looks like there's actually been a couple of spikes above 6 blobs. The actual average over the last few days is around just under 4.5 blobs, and it's kind of peaked at like that 5, just under 5 blob number, which is really, really cool. Usage on L2s is going up like all the time, and the trend is definitely upwards. Now, by the time we get PRS with Fusaka, I'm hoping that the blob count will be saturated. But this is what I was trying to show earlier about the AI agents thing. Like right now, it's humans, for the most part, using blockchains, doing, human transactions. Like, I'm a power user, and I probably do 20 transactions a day on Ethereum's L2s. But others might do 1 transaction a week. But these agents, they could be doing hundreds or thousands of transactions every day, right? And that amount of usage is going to get taken up by these blobs. So we're definitely building so that we have the capacity for that to happen. And with Fusaka in a few months' time, we'll be increasing the blob count again, which is really awesome. Okay, let's talk about the strategic ETH reserves, and we have this quite a bullish stance from SBET. So the 2 Joes, I think, were on one of the news channels as well, and kind of just promoting SBET. But here, Joe Lubin actually says that Sharplink is going to outstrip every other ETH treasury company quickly and dramatically. So this is how he plans on doing it. So SBET, being one of the largest ETH accumulators on the planet, actively managing ETH to maximize its productivity, stake, restake, and compound into powerful DeFi yields. Sharplink is backed by Ethereum company itself, which is a massive unfair advantage. I think that might be pushing things a little bit there by saying that. And then Sharplink is run by the best DeFi investors in the world. So they're kind of hyping themselves because they're falling a little bit behind BMNR. And as you can see here, they've got about half the ETH that Bitmine does. So Bitmine's at 1.2 million ETH. Sharplink is at 600,000 ETH. But I think that number needs to be updated. It's actually higher. Ether Machine at 345,000. Then there's Ethereum Foundation at 230,000. And then we have Bit Digital at 120,000 and ETHZilla at 82,000 and BTCS at 70,000. What's really interesting here is having a look at the MNAV numbers. And if you actually have a look at the MNAV numbers, you'll see that BTCS is massively undervalued. Like their value per share. So if you count up the total amount of their shares, it's actually less than the value of the amount of ETH they hold in their books, which just tells you that there's that's really it's really strange to see that. But the others are mostly over their NAV, and then there's some question marks around their numbers as well. So you have to dig a little deeper to get the real numbers. But I'm not telling you which one to invest in, which one to buy, or anything like that. But it might be worth having a look at that and seeing what appeals to you. Okay, let's talk about the ETFs now. And we have some ETF news from Nate Garassi here. And Nate says that the spot ETH ETFs post the third best inflow day ever. So over $700 million worth of inflows yesterday. So the really cool thing here is that 3 out of the top 6 inflow days since the launch of Ethereum, the Ethereum ETFs, the ETH ETFs, have come in this last week, which is just amazing, truly astonishing. It just tells you how strong the ETFs have been recently. And then it says that in the last 7 trading days, so since Monday last week, over $3 billion of new money has come into the ETH ETFs. So that's just gargantuan amounts of money. It's one of the best performing ETFs, over the last, like in August, basically, in the whole world out of all ETFs. So that's really, really cool. And as you can see here, the numbers, the total amount of inflows yesterday was 729 million. The day before were 523 million. Friday was 1 billion 18 million. So those numbers are just massive. If you have a look at the Bitcoin ETF flows, pretty much that whole time, the ETH ETF flows have been outperforming the Bitcoin ones very strongly. And you can see here with Bitcoin yesterday, 86,000, the day before 66, sorry, not thousand million, 87 million, 66 million, 178 million. It just dwarfs in comparison, with ETH nearly having 3 billion on those days. That's one of the reasons why the ratio is going so high up, right? Is because of this huge buy pressure that's coming, and relatively lackluster buy pressure for Bitcoin is just driving up the ETH ratio, which of course we love to see. So with this price action, then, the question you need to ask, and which is being asked right now, is, Mike Ippolito from Blockworks, who I know a lot of people have conflicting opinions about Blockworks recently, but this really interesting take here and discussion that kind of came up with this. So Mike says DAT volumes and ETH BTC are moving in lockstep. So digital asset treasuries, as they accumulate more ETH, the price of ETH against BTC is moving up, as a very strong correlation. It says this is the strongest argument I've seen that BTC is not in fact a special snowflake, and it was mostly just Saylor all along. And he says even if you're a staunch BTC maxi, this price action must make you think a little bit. So what does he mean by this, by it being Saylor all along? So over the last 4 years, Saylor has been playing all these financial games to buy billions of dollars of Bitcoin. Like the markets went down significantly over that time. ETH got obliterated, alts got obliterated, but BTC held up surprisingly well, quote unquote, and it hit its all-time highs a lot sooner than historically it has done in this 4-year cycle, if you still believe in the 4-year cycle. And it's just been really strong over that time. Now the two main factors of driving money into the BTC ETFs were of course Saylor buying and also the ETFs buying, but now that that's shifted to ETH, has that impacted the special snowflake status? Now here Jasper retweeted this and he said this could be existential for BTC. If ETH attracts more capital and has a higher market cap, what's the point of BTC anymore? ETH inflation will never be greater than 2%. That's already sound money. So this is a very interesting take here from Jasper. It really, there's a long way to go before ETH is ahead of BTC, but it definitely begs the question of what is going to happen in that situation. And John Chabanow here actually, John Chabanow here said that, this was actually from a few months ago, from July 12th, replying to Fabrice. So he says, Fabrice said, for years, BTC has outperformed the market thanks to Saylor and the treasury acquisition flywheel. The same is starting with ETH, and 3 entities have already pivoted from ETH to BTC. So this was just in July, just over a month ago, right? John Charbonneau replied by saying, also they'll dismiss BTC's success as being because of Saylor, and I think copying it will make ETH and thinking that copying it will make ETH the same. This ignores the fact that Saylor strategies worked because of BTC. He didn't come out of nowhere and pick BTC randomly. It was BTC for a reason. And Vivek said, you're smart on tech, but you're wrong on this. And we'll see in 6 months how ETH does because of new buy pressure. And obviously, Fabrice then had a nice little laugh at John's expense, saying, remember when they told you Saylor's strategy worked only because of BTC and they wouldn't work for ETH? And then there's laughing images there. So that's really funny. There are a couple of interesting takes that I had about ARK, that I saw about ARK, which are the new L1 that's going to come from Circle. And Adam Cochran was one of these people, and he said that this isn't an L1; it's a proof of authority chain. That's like the same as a private blockchain. That's because it's USDC as a root token, and the economic incentives won't be there to be a faithful validator. So it's a private consortium, and they'll be running it, and that won't be secure, and people won't use it, right? Because they don't want there to be trusted elements in the stack. The whole thing about crypto is that you don't have those trusted elements. Here, Joe Lubin as well, I said permissioned enterprise chains were tried and they failed years ago. Why? Because nobody trusted them. Central control of those chains enough to shop on those chains. So those are the problems there. Really big problems. And, Paul Brody here talked about it a lot with EY, saying that, they should all, private companies should actually be working on public blockchains instead of private blockchains. And David Hoffman here had a take as well. He says, every few years we try the public versus private chain thesis. Every time we learn the same lessons. And the lesson, of course, is that Ethereum is the way to go. So, yeah. Okay, I'm going to finish up today's episode with a couple of things. One is some Schadenfreude at Multicoin's on their expense. Now, Multicoin are mostly kind of a Solana company, and they were very critical of ETH in years gone by, and saying a lot of bullshit about ETH, especially Kyle Samani from there. Anyway, there's kind of rumors been going around for a while that Kyle was long Sol and short ETH as a delta neutral hedge, which obviously wasn't delta neutral, and ETH has massively outperformed the Sol ratio. So people who were in that position have been blown out. Now, this is a meme kind of about rumors about multi-chain capital being one of those places that got blown out. It's really funny. And then JRAG as well says, there are some posts that warm the heart so much that you don't care if they're true or not. You just want them to be true, because it makes you feel so good. And I'm definitely in that position. And if you have a look at the Sol ETH ratio, and over the last few months since April, basically it hit a local high in January, hit the all-time high, and since then it's just basically been a straight line down, with no more than 2 green days in a row. Right now, Sol is on the 3rd green day in a row, if it can hold on to that for the next 7 hours until the markets close. But that's been really poorly performing recently. And finally, here there was a Bitcoiner saying Ethereum is a psyop to distract you from Bitcoin. So we've been getting some really bad takes from Bitcoiners in the last few days. I think there's a lot of cope because of the ratio going up so much. And Leo here had a brilliant response saying, intelligence has been chasing you all your life, Pierre, but you've always managed to be faster. So on that note, I'm going to end today's episode. So thank you all for watching, listening, and being part of the Rocket Fuel community. I hope you all have a lovely day ahead. Hopefully ETH price will keep bouncing and we'll get new all-time high soon, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye.